Russia in winter is not a season. It is a reckoning, a force so absolute it has swallowed armies whole, buckled steel, and broken the confidence of every outside power that ever looked at this land and thought it could be taken. The coldest temperature ever recorded at a permanently inhabited settlement was measured in Siberia, minus 96.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Read that number once more, slowly, because at that point, exposed skin freezes in seconds, diesel fuel gels in its tank, and the air itself becomes a weapon. And people live there. Not refugees, not prisoners waiting for release. Families, children, grandmothers who have never seriously considered leaving. That is the central mystery of this film. Not how Russia survives winter, but why, generation after generation, no one walked away. To understand that, you have to stop thinking of cold as an obstacle and start seeing it as an architect. Everything about Russian civilization, its diet, its psychology, its military strategy, the very layout of its cities, was drawn up in negotiation with temperatures that the rest of the world simply does not experience. Consider the plate on a Russian table: beets, carrots, potatoes, root vegetables chosen not for flavor first but for durability. These are foods that can be grown in a short, cold season and then stored underground for months, through winters that leave nothing else alive above the frost line. The cuisine is not a preference. It is a survival protocol written in soil. And that instinct, to dig in, to endure, to build systems that outlast the worst the sky can send, runs through every layer of Russian life like a seam of iron ore. But here is what most people outside Russia never grasp. The cold did not only punish, it also protected. The same winters that froze soldiers in their tracks, that turned supply lines to nothing, that made every invader's campaign a slow catastrophe. Those winters have long stood guard over Russian territory. The land itself was the first and most reliable line of defense. So the people who stayed did not stay in spite of the cold. They stayed, in part, perhaps because of what the cold kept out. There is a kind of brutal logic to it. Once you see it clearly, a bargain struck between a civilization and its climate, renewed every single winter without ceremony, without choice. You give us months of darkness, frozen ground, temperatures that test every technology we build. And in return, you make this land unconquerable. That bargain shaped the Russian character in ways that are still visible today. In the stubbornness, in the dark humor, in the deep suspicion of any force, any ideology, any leader who promises the cold can simply be wished away. It cannot. It never has. And the people who have lived here longest are the ones who stopped pretending otherwise. The flame in the hearth, that single stubborn flame, is not a symbol of hope in the sentimental sense. It is an engineering solution, a survival technology, the oldest and most honest conversation between a human being and the cold. I am still here. But surviving the cold is only part of the equation. The harder problem, the one that took centuries to solve and is still being solved today, is this: how do you build a city that works in winter? Look at Yakutsk from the air in January, and your first instinct is that no one could possibly be home. The streets are white, the rooftops sealed under snow, the whole city pressed flat beneath a cold so dense it turns exhaled breath into falling crystals before it can rise. Nothing moves on the surface, or so it seems. But beneath every sidewalk, inside every wall, running through every basement and shaft, something is working, quietly, constantly, without pause. The city is not frozen, it is breathing, and it has been doing so for a very long time. Building anything permanent in Siberia requires a negotiation with ground that never fully thaws. A layer of frozen earth that extends hundreds of feet down, locked in place year-round. In Yakutsk, that negotiation is literal. Every concrete building stands not on the ground itself, but on reinforced piles driven between 26 and 82 feet, 8 to 25 meters, into the permafrost below. That distinction matters enormously because the moment a heated building touches permafrost directly, the warmth seeps downward, the ground softens, and the structure above begins to shift. So engineers left a gap, a deliberate void beneath each building, open to the winter air, cold enough to keep the ground locked solid. The city is built to float above its own foundations. What is strange, though, is what happens inside those buildings, because the engineering problem runs in both directions. In the most modern apartments in Yakutsk, the heating systems run so aggressively through the long winter that residents sometimes have to drape blankets over their radiators just to keep the temperature livable. This is not comfort by accident, it is precision, calibrated over generations of failure. Failure is exactly the right word, because the older record is written in tilted walls and cracked foundations. The wooden houses of earlier Siberian settlements, built before engineers, understood the permafrost problem fully, now sinking at angles their builders never intended. Decades of meltwater undermining their footings, the earth swallowing them slowly, one frost cycle at a time. Every engineering solution visible in Yakutsk today was earned through a building that leaned too far and had to be abandoned. The city is its own archive of trial, correction, and hard-won knowledge. And the knowledge runs deeper than the piles themselves. It shapes every design choice, from the pitch of a roof to the placement of a pipe. Water lines cannot run underground here the way they do in Chicago or Denver. The ground would freeze them solid within days. So the infrastructure runs above ground, insulated inside wooden utility boxes called above-ground utility corridors, striding across city blocks on their own stilts. The city's circulatory system laid bare, draped across the skyline in plain sight. There is something almost candid about it. No pretense that this place is anywhere other than exactly where it is. What these cities represent is not defiance of winter. It is architecture that has absorbed winter into its logic, the way a river bend absorbs the pressure of a current, not by resisting it, but by giving it somewhere to go. The flame that kept a single family alive in one room has, across centuries, scaled into something massive. District heating grids, pressurized steam loops, networks of warmth stitching millions of people together against the dark. But here is the question that the buildings themselves cannot answer. The systems can be engineered, the pipes insulated, the foundations driven deep. Yet none of that explains the person who actually chooses to stay, to rise before dawn in February, to walk out into a cold that stops sensation within minutes. What is it, exactly, that lives inside the people themselves? In the body, in the culture, in something perhaps older than either, that makes this possible? Forget the image of the stoic Russian, standing still against the storm, enduring because there is nothing else to do. That picture is wrong, and the people who actually live through 8-month winters will tell you why, if you know how to ask. Survival here is not passive, not a matter of gritting your teeth and waiting for April. It is a practice, daily, deliberate, passed down not through classrooms but through hands, kitchens, and the memory of cold pressed into the body across generations. Start with biology, because that is where the story gets strange. Research published in 2014 confirmed that indigenous Siberian populations carry genetic variants that measurably increase their baseline metabolic rate, the body's internal engine running hotter, burning more fuel, producing more heat as a baseline condition of being alive. Not just cold tolerance adapted through habit, but altered at the level of the genome. Winter, over thousands of years, has quietly rewritten the instructions inside these bodies. The Nenets, reindeer herders who have navigated the West Siberian tundra for centuries, have built a second layer of knowledge that no gene can carry: the ability to read the wind itself as a compass. In a landscape where the horizon disappears and every direction looks identical, they orient by catching the angle and texture of the wind against their face, a skill so refined it has its own name. And when the wind drops and the blizzard closes in, they go lower, literally pressing their feet to the snow to feel the ridges and grooves carved by prevailing weather into the surface. Those ridges, called zastrugi, run in predictable directions shaped by the dominant winds of the season. Your feet become a compass, your skin becomes a map. Navigation without instruments, written into the land itself. Think about what that requires. Not just knowledge, but trust. Trust that the landscape, hostile as it appears, is actually speaking, if you are quiet enough and trained enough to hear it. This is the part that outsiders consistently miss. We see the cold as the enemy, the white emptiness as a void. But for the people who grew up inside it, the winter landscape is dense with information. Every crack in the ice, every shift in the wind, every degree of silence carries a meaning that has been learned and relearned across lifetimes. It is not endurance, it is fluency. And fluency is never accidental. In fishing communities along frozen rivers, children learn which ice will hold weight and which will not before they learn to read words on a page. Not from a lesson, but from standing beside a parent and watching, season after season, until the knowledge lives in them the same way language does. The hearth at the center of every home is not just warmth. It is the anchor point of this transmission, the place where the oldest knowledge gathers at the end of each hard day and quietly hands itself to the next generation. That flame, single, steady, refusing to go out, is the oldest survival technology Russia has ever produced, more durable than any policy, any army, any ideology. So the question is not how these people endure the cold. The real question, the one that should make you pause, is this: what happens when an army arrives here carrying nothing but weapons, having never learned a single word of the language the winter speaks. The steel cracked first. Not the men, not the horses, not the supply lines, the steel, the very metal the army had trusted with its life, became brittle and snapped like glass in temperatures cold enough to freeze lubricating oil solid inside the breech of a rifle. When your weapons stop working, you are no longer an army. You are just men standing in the cold. Every great power that has ever marched into Russia in winter has discovered the same thing. The enemy that defeats you first is not waiting behind a fortified line. It is already inside your gear, your engines, your hands. At extreme cold, steel loses its flexibility. The molecular structure shifts, and what was rigid becomes fragile, shattering under impact the way it never would in a temperate climate. Lubricating oil thickens, then freezes, then stops moving entirely, and a gun that cannot cycle is a club, nothing more. Every invading army learned this the same way, by experience, by failure, and almost always too late. Now ask yourself why the Russian soldier kept fighting while the invader's rifle jammed. The answer is not training, not ideology, not superior equipment. The simplest answer is this: they had been here before, they knew what was coming, and they had built an entire way of life around that knowledge. The Russian army moved on horse-drawn sledges, the most reliable logistics platform in a Russian winter, hugging frozen ground that wheeled vehicles could not cross, while foreign armies waited for engines that would not start. The native Russian panj horse, small and unremarkable in any other season, became a strategic asset in winter, capable of surviving outdoors at temperatures that would kill a heavier European breed, provided it had shelter from the wind. Logistics is the hidden grammar of every war, and Russia's grammar in winter was written in a language no invader had the time to learn. But here is what the history books rarely say. The cold did not favor Russia because Russia was invincible. It favored Russia because Russia had spent centuries negotiating with the cold, while every other army arrived with contracts written in summer. Think about what it means to fight on terrain your enemy cannot read. Terrain that is not just geography, but a living system of ice roads, frozen rivers, snowfields that conceal and reveal on their own schedule. The invader sees white and sees nothing, a blank, featureless obstacle. The defender sees a map. Here the river road that holds a supply sledge. There the windward slope that kills a man by morning. Here the tree line that tells you exactly how far sound will carry before it dies. That asymmetry, one army reading the land, the other reading it wrong, has decided the outcome of campaigns that no battlefield maneuver could have reversed. And something else was built here, forged in those same temperatures, something harder to measure than steel tensile strength or caloric intake. A national identity that arguably does not define itself by conquest, by expansion, or by triumph alone, but by a particular pride of having outlasted something the rest of the world could not. Endurance, when it happens at sufficient scale, stops being a coping strategy and becomes a mythology. And Russia's mythology was written by Winter, one brutal campaign at a time. There is a furnace at the heart of that mythology, not a metaphor, but a real, roaring industrial mouth of fire. The same flame that began as a single candle in a peasant home, scaled up across centuries into something vast enough to smelt steel, heat a city, and keep a civilization burning against 40 below. The flame did not get smaller with time, it got bigger because the cold kept demanding it. So, Winter shaped not just how Russia fought its wars, but what Russia believes about itself, that it is a people tested by a force no foreign power could manufacture or deploy, a people whose identity was pressure forged in the coldest laboratory on Earth. Which raises a question the next chapter cannot avoid. If the cold made Russia what it is, if surviving the land was always the precondition of everything else, then what happens when a nation decides it will not just survive the frozen Earth, but build an entire industrial civilization on top of it? The Soviet Union had a plan for the permafrost. Drill through it, build on top of it, pour concrete into it, and then, simply, will it into submission through the force of industrial ambition and state power. What could frozen Earth do against a civilization that had already moved mountains, reversed rivers, and sent men into orbit? The permafrost had its own answer, and it was not interested in ideology. Permafrost is not just frozen ground. It is ground locked in place for thousands of years, some of it since the last ice age, a layer running beneath roughly 2/3 of Russia's landmass that holds no memory of warmth. It does not yield to machinery the way ordinary soil does, and it does not stay passive when you pump heat into it. It waits, and then it moves. The Soviet industrial push into Siberia was one of the most audacious construction campaigns in recorded history. Cities, factories, rail lines, military installations, driven deep into terrain that had rarely supported permanent settlement at this scale. Yakutsk alone, a major city in one of the coldest inhabited places on Earth, was turned into a showcase of what collective will could achieve. Apartment blocks rose on reinforced concrete piles driven 25 meters into the frozen ground, and the engineers believed they had found the formula: keep the ground cold, keep the structure stable, dominate the landscape on your own terms. Here is the thing they did not fully account for. The ground underneath those piles was never static. Any heat bleeding from a building, any small change in drainage, any variation in the insulating layer of vegetation that had been scraped away during construction could tip the thermal balance just enough to begin softening the permafrost below. Not flooding it, not collapsing it overnight, just softening it millimeter by millimeter, season by season. And across Siberia today, you can see what that slow softening does. Across Siberia today, entire city blocks have shifted on their axes. Not suddenly, but in the slow arithmetic of seasons, the permafrost reclaiming what was never truly given. Streets that ripple like frozen waves, rail beds that no longer meet their rails, apartment towers that tilt in formation as if the continent itself has quietly decided to rearrange its priorities. The Soviets did not lose the permafrost in a single dramatic failure. They lost it in 10,000 small surrenders, playing out across decades. It is the same miscalculation that others brought to Russian soil before, arriving with plans drawn up somewhere warmer, somewhere more forgiving, and discovering too late that the land does not negotiate on those terms. The engineers who got it right were the ones who stopped thinking about conquering the permafrost and started thinking about deceiving it, keeping it cold enough, through ventilated gaps and careful thermal management, that it never realized a building was sitting on top of it. Those buildings still stand. Inside those same buildings, residents have been known to drape blankets over their radiators, not for decoration, but because the heating systems, designed to fight the outer cold, pump out so much warmth that the apartments become stifling. It is a detail that captures something essential about life on permafrost. The margin between too much and not enough is razor thin, and getting it wrong costs everything. What does it mean that the Soviet state, at the peak of its power, could not out-engineer a layer of frozen dirt? It means the same thing it has always meant in this part of the world. That Russian land is not a passive backdrop to Russian history. It is a participant, stubborn and slow-moving, and utterly indifferent to whoever claims to be in charge. The permafrost does not care about 5-year plans. The cracked foundations and tilted walls standing across Siberia today are not monuments to failure. They are proof of something far more uncomfortable, that the most powerful state apparatus the modern world had seen could pour concrete, marshal labor, and bend the laws of economics, but it could not bend this. The flame is still burning in those apartments, wrapped in blankets, turned down low, coaxed into equilibrium with a landscape that never agreed to the arrangement. And the question that rises out of all of this, out of the tilting houses, the frost-heaved roads, the cities balanced on their piles above the frozen dark, is not whether Russia won or lost its bet on the permafrost. The question is, what kind of people are shaped by knowing, deep down, that the ground itself can never be fully trusted, and whether that knowledge, carried across generations, has made them something the rest of the world is only beginning to understand. Here is something that doesn't announce itself. Every Russian alive today carries a winter inside them they did not choose. Not metaphorically, literally, in the body, in the habits of eating and building and reading silence, in the instinct to keep something burning when everything outside wants it extinguished. The question this film has been circling from the beginning is not whether Russia survives winter, but what kind of people winter makes. And the honest answer, after everything we have seen, is we still don't fully know. What we do know is this: the land was never neutral, and it was never conquered, and the people who stayed long enough began to carry its logic in their bones. Parts of the indigenous Siberian population have been genetically reshaped by thousands of years of cold, their metabolisms running hotter just to hold against temperatures that steel cannot withstand. And yet the body is only one layer of what winter has built here. The Nenets, moving across a landscape with no landmarks visible, no horizon that holds still, no compass the blizzard cannot disorient. They learn to feel the angle of wind-packed snow ridges underfoot, to navigate by texture, by pressure, by things no map could capture. That is a different kind of knowledge, not stored in books or databases, but in feet, in muscle memory, in a child watching an elder and absorbing something that cannot be translated into any other language. Winter, here, is the oldest school in the world, and it has never once issued a certificate. Every army that came to Russia with its strategy drawn in summer found the same thing. The terrain was a language it could not read, and fluency was not available on short notice. But what is less often asked is this: when Russia turned that same ambition on itself, when the Soviet machine drove into Siberia with blueprints and ideology and the certainty of progress, did it make the same mistake? The buildings that leaned, the foundations that cracked and split across decades, the permafrost that gave nothing back, they are the answer. No system of belief, from outside or from within, has ever made this land cooperate. And so what remains is not victory, It is something more durable and more ambiguous than victory. Fluency earned across generations with a world that never promised safety. The root vegetables that fed Russia through its longest winters, potato, beet, carrot, are not glamorous, but they are honest. Grown fast in short cold seasons, stored through the dark months, boiled down into something that keeps a person alive when nothing else will. Russian cuisine is, in this sense, an archive, a record of every winter that almost won. And perhaps that is the deepest pattern this land has pressed into the people who stayed. Not pride in achievement, not confidence in the future, but a particular fluency with uncertainty, the knowledge, held in the body before it reaches the mind, that the ground shifts, that nothing is guaranteed, and that the correct response is not to stop moving. So the question this film opened with, why don't they leave? Turns out to have been the wrong question all along. The right question is, what do you become if you stay? And the answer Russia offers, across 11 time zones and 1,000 years of frost, is not a triumphant one, it is a patient one. You become someone who knows how to keep a flame alive in conditions where flames have no right to exist. Not because you have conquered the cold, but because you have learned, generation by generation, how to cup your hands just right. Winter has never been defeated here, and it never will be. And somewhere in that fact lives the truest thing this land has to say about the people who call it home. A single flame, still burning, against everything the world outside has thrown at it.